Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pelvic Pulse podcast. I am Brittney and I'm with Tiffany Yelverton of Entice Me. I'm really excited about this interview and conversation that we can have, which I feel like will just kind of blow some people's minds, to be honest. Tiffany, do you want to share a little bit about what it is that you do? What are you passionate about right now? I feel like there's a really good update here to share with people.
Yes, I am really passionate about educating and enticing women to own their sexual power and to self-pleasure, and so that they can have everything that they want in the world. And my big passion is really helping, especially cancer survivors, re fall in love with their bodies after their traumatic surgeries and chemotherapy treatments, radiation, and to get them back to a healthy, vibrant sex life, with intimacy. And, we go through all the mental, emotional, and psychological benefits. And really, they fall in love with their bodies again. They fall in love with themselves. They discover who they are as a woman without all the labels that come with being a survivor.
Oh my gosh, that is so incredible. I'm so curious how you made that pivot or what really drew you into working with this particular set of clients and people.
I've been doing it about a year into my business. So 12 years ago, I met a woman who was a long time stage 4 leiomyosarcoma survivor who ran a lot of survivor groups, had been really involved in the cancer community. And we met at a networking, and she's like, I've never heard anyone speak so frankly about sexuality and sex and intimacy as you. And she's like, after money, sex and returning to a healthy sex life is the number one thing that survivors are concerned with.
Wow.
And I didn't know that. So it just really went along with, the self-love piece and embracing your body, all of its flaws that society thinks we have. And, with, we're starting with survivors of breast, genital, and reproductive cancers, which is very sexually based anyway, and very tied to what we think is feminine in our society. And there's a lot of shame and guilt and trauma for survivors there. So it just really goes along with what we've always done at Entice Me, which is teaching women to really love themselves and put themselves first, and to self-pleasure and be whole, and adding other things into your life as you go along.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much there to unpack, I'm sure. And like, yeah, the first thing I think is almost like that shame that does come with maybe having quote unquote a sickness or a sick body and maybe having to have surgery removing these certain things that you can identify with, that you think make you feminine. That's so interesting and wild. And I think about, even when women cut their hair, right? But also in chemo, when you lose your hair, how you kind of just have to let that go.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder, how do you formulate working with them in this way? Do you kind of touch on all of these like more emotional aspects first?
Yeah, I have what I call the pleasure trifecta, which is the mind and psychological pieces, the body and biological pieces, and then the vulva and then physical pieces that go along with everything that we feel in our sex lives and our
Yeah,
intimacy with ourselves, and, being confident to involve a partner
absolutely.
and feel comfortable naked. That's such a thing that so many women struggle with. And there's little things that you can do to still feel feminine, still feel beautiful, but maybe just not be all out there. Simple, like put a robe on that's open in the front. It covers what you don't want that you're not comfortable with yet, and just teaching techniques to involve all the senses and so that you do fall in love with yourself.
I'm curious too, are you finding that sometimes the women that you're working with as cancer survivors are they aware from the get-go though of how arousal, how pleasure works, or were they completely disconnected from it from before? I'm just curious about where their kind of headspace is at when they come to see you and what they feel like they think they know about pleasure and sex and relationships in this way.
We just finished our first official case study with Sexy Survivors, and
Mm.
there was a variety. Most of them were sexual beings that had lost that piece of them. And they, once we started really digging in, they didn't realize how much they had lost in the last year, 2 years from treatment. And that it was, they wanted to get back to that piece, and they wanted to feel good about it again, and to be able to just communicate with their partners, because a lot of times the survivor's ready to re-engage and the partners are afraid that they're going to hurt them or they're not ready, or and so there's dealing with all of that, as well as the guilt of also survivorship guilt. um, there's so much, and so we do a 7-week program and with some personal coaching aspects, and then we have a platform developed out to give additional resources and training and ongoing support throughout life.
Gotcha. So how many how many women were in the case study this time
In this
around?
first case study, we had 5.
Amazing. And how did you find them or how did they find you?
They are all women that I knew from life, either
Mm.
networking or had been past clients, friends, referrals.
Okay,
In
amazing. So how do you I'm
fact,
curious
one of them
too.
was a girl I went to high school with that she found me on social media. And
What?
yeah, and she's in Australia now,
Oh
and
my
she was in our
gosh.
group. So just, it was really awesome.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. I love when you can make connections like that just from so long ago and everything that you're doing now is so relevant to some of these people, you know? I know we had talked about this kind of off recording uh previously, but we were talking about potentially sharing this information with hospitals and with other kind of like medicalized institutions where maybe they're consistently seeing and treating these cancer patients and survivors. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, I feel like there's something here that has to do with the lack of education that the medical system provides for women or any cancer patient or survivor. It's kind of wild.
It is wild. And, the things that doctors do their job, they keep the patient alive. But
Mhm.
I believe our medical system needs to look at the whole person and the quality of life, not just the quantity of life going forward. And what we found is that with coaching and additional, added on programs like we provide, the survivors are struggling to pay their medical bills. And this is just an added something that, like, sex is always put on the back burner. Like, oh, I don't need that. I'll pay for my drugs, I'll pay for my vitamins, but sex, oh, I can do without it. And so our goal is to have hospitals and cancer centers bring our program on as part of their full treatment plan for the patients and the survivors, so that it's not an additional cost for the survivors, and
Mm.
that it's to really increase longevity of the patients. It's proven that when you have a healthy, vibrant sex life, you have less cancer, you have less occurrences of cancer, reoccurrences, less of strokes, less cardiovascular disease, um, fewer, better overall health. And we're discovering too that when we take our patients and survivors through our program, we uncover other things that they may not have even known that they need that can be additional revenue for the hospitals, like pelvic physical therapy, like hormone replacement therapy, other things that they didn't even know that they needed that can be additional revenue for the hospitals. And, when people are healthier, it saves insurance companies money. And there's all kinds of studies that people that have a healthy, vibrant sex life take better care of themselves. So they do go to their annual exams. They do follow up on appointments in the medical system when, maybe if someone doesn't feel so good about their sex life, they are kind of ashamed of it, they're depressed, they are less likely to go to their annual exams, go to their wellness checkups, continue to engage in the medical system as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder, have you worked hands-on or in person with these people solely, or is it all virtually?
So this round was virtual.
Okay.
In the past, I have done private coaching with people in person,
Yeah.
and,
Mhm.
speaking about it and really getting the information out there is so important because most doctors don't know anything about sex besides their own personal sex life. They get like 6 hours of training in medical school at all about sex and sexuality. A lot of doctors couldn't tell you where the clitoris is, all those things that too.
Oh my
uh,
gosh. Roll my eyes.
right? And so this is something that they're uncomfortable talking about. It's something that is out of their wheelhouse, and we can come in and take it off their plate and to really support because it is important. It doesn't, I mean, I've had patients and survivors that I've worked with, women that have been told, oh, you just need to get over it. It's just a breast, like, no, this is part of my body. And I'm 30 years old and I've had a double mastectomy.
Yeah.
And also, my husband now doesn't want to acknowledge that I have cancer, sleeping in another room. And eventually, that relationship goes away. Women are twice as likely to be divorced during cancer treatment than men are going through cancer treatment.
Wow. Wow. I had no idea.
And about 419,000 women every year just in the US are diagnosed with breast, genital, or reproductive cancers. So that's over 200,000 women every year that are risk of getting divorced. And
Holy
that's a lot of
smokes.
families that it affects as well.
100%. Oh my God. And okay, so now that you kind of mentioned even an age, right? Someone 30 years old, they're diagnosed with breast cancer, but also even the woman, whatever age they are, maybe they're diagnosed with cervical cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian, and those things get taken out, right? And they're put into a space of like surgically onset menopause. And that can have an effect, like, regardless of the cancer, forget the cancer, right?
Right.
Like, menopause, going through that is a process too.
Yeah, chemo puts women into a medical menopause, bar none. Chemo does that. So and most doctors don't even tell their patients that that's going to happen,
Wow.
that it is, it disrupts the hormones. A lot of them, women get put on hormone blockers, then they feel worse, their bodies hurt, they lose all desire, uh, all the emotional, psychological desire that comes with the hormones and the biological piece of that. Um, as well. And then you have vaginal dryness, so sex is painful. And they literally come running to me when I'm at events because they're like, I've never seen a dilator. I've never heard of a vaginal moisturizer that isn't gonna be irritating. And
Yeah. It's
there are so many things that can be done that to make life livable and exciting that are not necessarily medical based that can really help that women just don't even know about.
I want to know about your favorite tools for that. Like, what are some of these practical things that maybe women can get their hands on, in your opinion, that will help them feel this excitement and maybe vibrancy more for their sexual life?
You know, Sex Butter is one of my favorite products on the market. It's
I
a
love that name.
vaginal moisturizer that's all organic. It's great for perimenopause, menopause. It makes sex better. It has some proprietary essential oils that help your body to naturally start producing more moisture.
Mm,
A friend of mine just developed a CBD vaginal suppository that is beeswax and cocoa butter, vitamin E, and it is amazing.
wow.
It's all natural, all organic. She's a pelvic PT actually also.
Amazing.
Um, and that just relieves the symptoms. It relaxes the tissue. It and then just starting with a small vibrator just to even feel into your body again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What's your favorite vibrator? So curious.
Right now it is the Lalo Enigma. It has a
Right
suction
now.
piece and then it has an inside leg that hits your G spot and it's like
Oh,
bring the
girl.
tears on, shaking.
I love it. I love it. I feel like, I mean, this is something I always bring up with my clients too, especially if they're trying to get back in touch with their body. And it's interesting that there's always kind of a split between the ones who are open to using something that vibrates and those that are willing to do something that doesn't. But I feel like there is a really cool aspect of the vibration um, tools that I don't know if people know this, right? But it can like override pain. So if there was any kind of pain going on, I'd be like, yeah, try the vibrator, or try all of them all at once if you're not feeling
Yeah.
overstimulated. But yeah.
A great one for people who are kind of afraid of a vibrator is that the Intimate Rose vibrating S
Pelvic.
wand because it looks like it's a tool that we use for pelvic manipulation, but also it can vibrate. And when you have an orgasm, it releases hormones into your body that block pain receptors. So you do feel better. It's hormonally amazing.
That's
Um,
so funny. It's make that right there is just making me think of how there's this one breath work kind of coach that I have heard him say this multiple times. It's just like getting high on your own supply. And it's like,
oh,
of course,
love
through
that.
that is like breath work, but this is the same thing. Like you get high on your own supply of oxytocin and all those really yummy hormones that do totally make you feel better in your body. Good point. Good point.
Yeah,
How
it's like the best stress reliever.
100%. I mean, I think about you all the time because, by the way, for anyone listening that doesn't know and cares, Tiffany and I met in a mastermind basically in 2020, virtual. And I remember you telling us as a group, I'm pretty sure, that one of your ways to prep for maybe like a speaking engagement was to have an orgasm. And that has stuck with me and is like literally my biggest tip for anyone that's that wants to share their voice with people. I love it because it's so
It
true.
is. It allows you, I mean, even going beyond that with it, you know, helping to block pain receptors. The receptors also allow you to push past what you feel uncomfortable doing. So like going on stage, going on a Facebook Live or doing a podcast and asking for money in a sales conversation.
Yeah.
Like in a job interview, I've done multiple studies with my clients to be like before the salary negotiation, before you orgasm and afterwards, and how much more money they get.
Wow. And I mean, could you say, like, on average, how much more money are they getting after doing the
Between benefits and cash money, usually it's around $10,000.
No way.
And if you look at men tend to masturbate, like the studies are that they masturbate 23% more than women. And
Mm.
if you look at the gender pay gap, that's 20 cents. And I believe that it's a huge part of it because men are like, whatever, I'm going to ask for the money. And women are like, oh, I just take what I get.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean,
And
yes. Yes. It's like I think the masturbation gap, yes, and, like, the pleasure gap, the orgasm gap that we have in and of ourselves, you know? I didn't realize that those matched, but makes perfect sense. Okay, wait. I wanna kinda pivot, if you're okay with it, to your personal story.
yes,
Like, because okay, like you said, these clients or these friends are coming up to you and they're like, "You're the most basically liberated person around sex and pleasure." And I wanna know how you got there, how you got into this.
I was always that girl with the dirty mind.
Of course.
But I wasn't even sexually active. I just
Right.
always have been fascinated with sex and relationships. I remember asking my babysitter to explain to me when I was 5 where babies, like, how did babies really get there? I'm like, I don't believe in immaculate conception. I don't believe in the stork. Like, tell me. And she pulled out the chalkboard and drew out penis and vagina. Obviously, my mom's best friend's daughter, like, yes. And my mom, I remember coming home from work and going, I've waited my whole life to tell you about this. And you asked the babysitter. So I just had a
Oh.
really open-minded mom who was also, very liberated and sexually free. And that was really beautiful to see growing up after, especially after my parents' divorce, to really see her come into her own, um,
Mm.
and to really become a sexual being. And then fast forward, in high school, my high school had one of the highest pregnancy rates for teenagers in the US in Meridian, Idaho, per capita. And that was our junior year in high school. And it was crazy. And I just saw the effects of when sex isn't talked about,
Mm.
people get pregnant and the teenage pregnancy rate. And kind of at the same time, Jocelyn Elders was saying that, that she was a Surgeon General of the US. She said, I believe that masturbation would cut down on teen pregnancy. And that just always really stuck in my mind, that correlation that we don't. And then getting in my 20s and being sexually active later, I was 19 before I first had sex, and just thinking that I wanted more sex. And actually, I've realized I wanted better sex because I hadn't had an orgasm and I didn't even know that, because we
Mhm.
aren't taught about pleasure as women. We're taught about the consequences that come along with sex. You're going to get a reputation, you're going to get pregnant, you're going to get an STD, you're not going to be worthy of the world. And we aren't taught about pleasure. We're not taught about masturbation. We're not taught about our bodies. And so how can we even know that to tell a partner what we need if we don't know? And so when I had taken myself through a journey to really discover my body and explore the senses, and and it starts with sensate touch, and I'll share an activity that I do with all my clients and that everyone can just do right away. That's non-sexual, that when I had my first orgasm, I was like, why don't we teach all women this? We could have world peace if everybody had more orgasms. That it's so powerful, the ripple effect that it creates, that I just wanted to do that with my life. And I got into a corporate career, blah, blah, blah. I was, a corporate trainer and talent development and coach in corporate America. However, I was really unsatisfied. So 13 years ago, I walked out of my job and started my company.
Wow. And did it start with this coaching, with this, like, let me teach you how to self pleasure, or did it start somewhere else?
So how I started, I looked at really what's the, where can we go that it's comfortable for women to talk about
Mm.
their bodies and pleasure? And I was perimenopausal at the time. And so I was like, all these things that my body's going through, I think I'm all alone. I mean, I thought I was the only woman who was 25 that had never had an orgasm. But when you start talking to other women, you realize, oh, everybody's just like me.
I
But
was
that's not
27.
what Hollywood or Cosmo like makes you think.
Yeah.
And so I actually kind of at the same time, it was kind of a perfect storm. I had gone to a pleasure party and thought, wow, this could be done a lot better. This is
Mhm.
crass and cheesy, and these are conversations we need to have. And the products were crap, and they were changing color on each other in the box. And I was like, if they're doing that in a box, what are they doing in my body?
Yeah.
And that's when I did some research and found out that chemicals that were outlawed in children's toys weren't outlawed in adult toys. And so I curated a product line that's all medical grade, body safe, non-toxic. This was, 13 years ago, so it was really not talked about at all. There was a few handful of companies that were even doing any body safe products um, at that time. Now it's like trendy, but
Mhm.
I'm like, if those things are changing the color and on each other, then they're changing in our bodies, and what irritation and cancer causing materials and dyes and everything are going into our bodies from the plastics. And so I started with pleasure parties. I started with, we call them the little black dress, our Sexinistas are the little black dress of pleasure. And we go in and educate and did home parties. And I started just by inviting people over to my living room and saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm starting. And now we have Sexinistas all over the world.
Wow.
And we educate women and couples, and we have a lot of male clients too, all genders, that sex can be pleasurable. It shouldn't be something that's taboo, that it's a huge part of life. And it just evolved from there. The conversations that we created from a deck of cards that I made of questions really enticed women to say, hey, I want to continue this conversation that we had, and moved into coaching. And now I do I have, a full line of courses. I do retreats, all kinds of
Yeah.
fun things.
You do some great stuff, I feel like. And that's so awesome that it started so intimately in your living room
Yeah.
in like a really safe and I don't know, non-clinical kind of way, just comfortable and
And
safe.
then the other piece is that we, right from the beginning, we worked with medical professionals, because I felt like women in their OBGYN's office, that's who they're going to go to ask about sex. So we put products into medical offices as well.
I mean, that's a great business move, if I do say so myself. Yeah, no, I feel like that's so huge and important. It's making me visualize, how women would just get together and do like the Tupperware sales and things
Yeah.
like that. But it's like, yeah, no, this should be done for pleasure. And I don't know. Yeah, I think that's incredibly powerful. I'm curious about your male clients too, and just even if you can maybe describe what you've seen, maybe even differences between like the male clients and the female clients and what their beliefs are potentially beforehand. And then maybe you can walk us through that practice that you mentioned that might, I don't know, in my head, I'm almost assuming that this practice could transform some of those prior beliefs.
So I think everybody wants to have more pleasure, wants to please their partners, but they don't know how. Men don't know how. And they don't, if they ask, then that's like, oh, I should know this. We have training on everything else, but we don't have any training in our sex life. We're just supposed to go out there and figure it out.
Literally just
So
like watch Sex in the City.
right, men are really interested in learning more. They really, if they're good people, they really want to please their partner. And they you know, a lot of men have shame around sex and what their desires are as well.
Mm,
What society's told them is right and wrong. The majority of my male customers are men who like pegging, which is female on male strap-on sex, great for prostate health as well.
preach.
And we sell a lot of pegging equipment. One of my Sexinistas is the foremost female expert. So she has a podcast, Ruby Riders, Pegging Paradise. And so she drives a lot of business to our website. And
Mm,
but men are just like, this is a taboo subject for them too. And like, how do I approach my wife with it? How do I, know that the equipment's good? So we really focus on, the all body safe. This isn't going to irritate your body. This isn't going to harm your body. It's not going to disrupt your endocrine system.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, I think that it's just a way for everyone to learn how to communicate better. And that's what it comes down to. People ask me how I coach people. It's really teaching them how to communicate
Yeah.
with
I
each
feel
other.
I feel like there's always this sense of you need to understand what it is that you want and need, and like whatever, unpacking any of the shame around that first, right? Because then if you don't know, like what you said earlier, if you don't know what you want, how can you share that with
Right.
a partner? And if you feel all this shame and resistance from sharing and you're like stuffing all that down, that's not going to manifest in any more pleasure.
Right.
So, yeah, I feel like it's kind of coming to terms, and maybe even if you don't know what you want, you experiment on your own, and then or research on your own and see what's out there, right? Um, and then you can find ways to communicate that in a healthy
Yes.
way.
And then for the practice that I suggest is it's the Masters and Johnson Sensate Touch, just starting with your face and touching and focusing on where your fingertips are coming in contact with your body,
Mm,
and vary your strokes and see what you like. Find new places on your body that turn you on, that are erotic, that are in and it's easy to do in the shower. We touch ourselves all the time throughout our day, but we forget to feel. And so tapping into that feeling when you're in the shower, what does it smell like? What does it feel like? What does your skin feel like when you touch it? Oh, you've got goosebumps and little hairs and a mole here and there, a scar. Like, what's that from? Oh, it's the roadmap of my life. I remember when I got that, those kinds of things that are really beautiful. And just taking a couple extra minutes when you put your body lotion on, just to touch yourself and feel your skin and go, and it brings oxytocin into your system to just give you a little bump in happiness and eroticism and sensuality, just by slowing down
mm.
and enjoying what's around you. And that starts with your body.
Yep. Yep. 100% agree. And I feel like I was talking to someone on their podcast, and this was literally what I said. She was like, what are some practical, accessible things? And I'm like, honestly, it's just taking everything that you do already and slow it way down.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be like a giant chunk of time, like carved out, like a workout, you know? It's like, I mean, the way I do it, I love just if I know I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to take my time dry brushing. I'm going to loofah my entire body, wash my face, and then I'll put on a body oil, just like coconut oil, and
Mhm.
take my time with that and really make sure I'm covering every single aspect of my being.
Yep.
And it's
It is. It's
so
just
pleasurable.
slowing down
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just being like, oh, this is my body. And when I teach courses, like the biggest thing that I go with the women is, okay, you're taking this course. It's 1 hour every week. And then you have about an hour of play work that you also have to do, like touching yourself. And that is the hardest part of the whole course, is for them to take 2 hours out of the whole week for themselves.
Which I get it.
I
Like,
get it too. It's busy, but
but like the
it's so
resistance,
needed.
Right, right. It's like, to me, doing pleasure is very much like, maybe even going to do a workout. It's like, or to yoga per se. Like, I feel this way with yoga specifically. Sometimes I dread getting on my mat. I don't know what's going to come up. I don't know what poses we're going to do and how I'm actually going to feel in my body. But I know that every single time after I've done a yoga class, regardless of if I like the teacher or the flow or the music, whatever, like I always feel better, and I always come away with a little bit more information about myself. And I feel like that's the way it is with pleasure as well, which I don't know if you've felt this, but these online courses and everything, whether it's self-paced or not, like you don't know if anyone's actually doing their stuff on the other end. And I've kind of gotten to a place where I'm like, I'm going to stop talking about it and I'm going to guide people in the moment with it. And it's so powerful. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, and people they don't know how to take the time, and they almost expect it to go someplace big, you know? And like having a big cry or a big release or a big orgasm or whatever. And it's like, it doesn't have to look like that for it to feel impactful, you know?
Exactly.
Ugh,
You know,
so
even if
beautiful.
you're doing your makeup, just having a
Yes.
ritual of just like, oh, let me feel my face. What temperature is it today? What does it feel like? Um, it's two extra seconds, a minute. It's not a whole revelation of things that you have to do. It's just slowing it down. And it's cliche, smell the flowers, but actually do stop and smell the things, look at the beauty around you and
Hmm.
appreciate all that you have.
I love that. And I feel like even for the cancer patients and the survivors that you're working with, like that is the reminder I'm sure that they're getting. I was talking to a friend that recently lost her dad, and she was just reflecting on how much perspective he had had in his last years. He softened so much and slowed down so much in a good way, And I just feel like that's before even maybe you get ill in any way. Like, let's take the time.
Like, do it now. Don't wait.
Yeah, do it now. Oh, I love that. Um, so what is coming up for you these days now? Are you gonna do another case study with
Yes,
people,
I
sexy
have one
survivors?
starting at the beginning of May. And
Okay.
so I'm enrolling women in that to get more data, quantitative data that we can really present.
Oh, that's so incredible. Are there any, I mean, feel like you could potentially use this as a platform to call out any people, any prospective clients who might want to join the study. So can you just describe maybe
Yes.
a little bit of those qualifications or qualifiers for anyone that you want to work with?
So it's usually about at least 6 months after treatment is when your body's healed enough that you're really starting to want to go into the emotional and physical realm of intimacy. So 6 months to 5 years out of cancer treatment is ideal. Um, any type of cancer is that you've had, but especially breast, genital, or reproductive cancers. So like cervical, vaginal, anal cancer, um, you
Yeah.
know, ovarian cancer, those types of cancers that really touch on what we focus on. And then um, it's a program that I've charged thousands of dollars. I used to charge $2,000 for my private program for it. We're just doing a $97 like registration fee so that we
Wow.
can get the data. And we just ask that you do the intake survey and the extake survey, and then you even you get an hour session with me, which is over $500 value, plus we give you a gift certificate for Entice Me for $100. So you're really making money on this. Plus it changes your life.
A hundred
um,
percent. Why wouldn't you
and
want to do
all
that?
all the participants that went through it at least increased their confidence and body love by over 200%. Most of them was much more than that. And then also all of them started having more intimacy and intimate conversations with their partners as well.
That's so incredible. I'm so happy that you're someone doing this work, the Lord's work.
So you can go to sexysurvivors.org to register,
Mm.
or we'll put all the information
Yeah,
together for you.
absolutely. Absolutely. I will link up everything in the show notes so that people will have access to you and this incredible program and all of your other amazing programs and courses and products. So, Tiffany, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Well, we'll
I love
see.
your energy. It's so great to see you.
Oh, thank you. Love your energy too. We'll see you guys next time.
Okay, bye-bye.